He did so many things, though. I think one of the things that was especially impressive was the starting of what became NASCO, National Shipbuilding and Steel Company, because I've kind of forgotten how he got into that. Were they one of his customers or something?
Yeah, in fact, I think what's interesting about his story, and you couldn't do this as a banker today, but he would take customers and he'd buy the customers' companies because they had a loan and they were in trouble, so he'd buy it, and he had a string of businesses that he had nothing to do with each other, but he found a way to make them go, and I forget why I think National Steel was that's not the original name, but it was...
Ironworks, it was Ironworks.
Ironworks. So they were a customer of his bank, and he loaned them money to do their projects, and this is when World War II happened and the U.S. was starting to build up the Navy. All of a sudden, this company became a super important national asset for shipbuilding.
They had to build and repair a lot of the ships that were involved in the war. And what's his background? He knew nothing about this.
And then you're probably going to get into this, but the next thing I thought was kind of funny was that he was trying to find business for National Steel, and he came up with the idea, well, we have all these tuna boats, but they're all wooden boats, and he discovered that a steel ship boat would be better than wood. So he convinced the
Portuguese.
The Portuguese
were opposed
to go with metal boats, and National Steel built them for him. And then the next thing he said, well, we'll make the cans for the canneries. So that he owned these companies that only someone like him would connect the dots and make them all work together, but they were all connected through different ways to him. He was the centerpiece of all this.
One of the things I thought was so funny is this guy named Medina, who was the head Portuguese fisherman, and he was so skeptical about the steel boats. He said, listen, take a piece of wood and throw it out in the water. What happens? It floats. Take a piece of steel, throw it out in the water, it sinks. And Smith, I guess, had to use the gifts of his personality, let's call it, to persuade these guys. And I think maybe what he did is he went out and competed with them. He built the steel boats with NASCO and convinced them this was the way to go. You could actually have nice living quarters on your boats, and they could be modern, much more modern than the wooden fishing boats that the Portuguese were using. So the other thing that was kind of interesting is, and I didn't get this from his article, I don't think he explained this that well, but it was in the Kevin Starr article, Kevin Starr book, was that it was World War II and the absence of a lot of fresh meat that made people develop their taste for tuna. Mm-hmm. So it was a great time to get into the tuna fishing. They fished a tremendous amount. He had places down in Peru and so on that he was bringing the tuna up in, and I thought, wow, very, very ambitious. The other thing I think that was striking was that NASCO did the buildings for Convair, and eventually I think he was involved. Well, he was involved with Ryan Aeronautical, of course, and then Ryan had merged with Teledyne. I don't know. Anyways, so a lot of these large San Diego companies had Smith kind of in there doing stuff at the very beginning.
Solar Turbines.
Oh, and Solar Turbines.
It was also a company that he was one of his customers. I don't think he was an owner of Solar, I don't think, was it? But
no, but they were a customer, and anybody who was a customer, he really kind of went all out for them. Mm-hmm. There's a character who came up early in his history, his story, and that was when he was at the bakery, I think, and it was Johnny Alicio. And Johnny Alicio was a shoe shine boy outside the bakery or the grocery store, I'm not quite sure which, and they became friends, and then eventually, after Smith went to work at the bank, he was still friends, would see Alicio around, and he said, listen, why don't you go get a real job at the Banco Nacional down in Tijuana? And for some reason, Alicio went down there and got a job and eventually worked his way up. He was kind of like the Mexican version of Smith, worked his way up and became quite a big banker there and was involved with the Agua Caliente racetrack and the casino before the racetrack. And Smith's memory was amazing because this is 1992. He's telling our writers this story, And he remembers that Rita Hayworth was down there at Don McCauley. Okay.
Famous, people may not know who that is.
Well, Rita Hayworth,
Right?
she was a famous actress for many years, and she was down in Agua Caliente performing. Maybe she was a singer too, I don't know. He also remembered that Lawrence Welk was at the Kona Kai. And that was something that happened later on.